Okay, friends, with that, I want to welcome you to our 246th online gathering for faith leaders across the country, which is now called Creating Beloved Community. This regular gathering is sponsored by ELCA's coaching ministry. I am Jill Beverlin. I use the pronouns she, her, and Aya, and I am the director of coaching ministries for the ELCA. And I'm honored to be giving our introduction today. In attunement with the truth and healing movement of the ELCA and moving toward right relationship with our Indigenous siblings and neighbors, let us begin with a land acknowledgement. We are gathered together from all parts of Turtle Island, and I am speaking with you from Appleton, Wisconsin, the ancestral territory of 5 nations of Native Indigenous peoples: the Menominee tribe, the Ho-Chunk Winnebago tribe, the Potawatomi tribe, the Oneida tribe, and the Stockbridge-Munsee Band of Mohicans and the Brothertown community. I honor and respect the diverse Indigenous peoples connected to this territory on which I live. We understand that all land is Indigenous land, and we invite each of you to name in the chat the Indigenous peoples or tribal nations whose land you occupy now. With this land acknowledgement, it's also important for us to offer a labor acknowledgement. And with permission granted by Dr. Tara T.J. Stewart, we acknowledge that much of what we know of this country today, including its culture, economic growth, and development, has been made possible by the labor of enslaved Africans and their ascendants who suffered the horror of transatlantic trafficking, slavery, and Jim Crow laws. We are indebted to their labor and their sacrifice, and we acknowledge the tremors of that violence throughout the generations and the resulting impact that can be felt and witnessed today. Another vital part of creating beloved community is fostering a sense of belonging. So we encourage you to update your name in Zoom to include your pronouns. This is just one more way we can express welcome for all of God's children. And at any point during these gatherings, you may access the captions option in the Zoom menu on your device. It might also show as an icon with the letters CC in a box. You may need to click on the 3 little dots or swipe to a different screen within Zoom to access this option. So let us continue our work toward healing and justice by entering into a place of peace and listening together. Throughout these regular gatherings, we have developed a covenant of how we enter and interact in this space. We are committed to creating a safer and braver space where each of us are able to bring the truth of who we are and how we are doing. We ask you to honor confidentiality for everything that is shared in breakouts, and if you share something in the larger space that you wish for us to edit out of the recording, just let us know afterwards. And with all of this said, we affirm these conversations are meant to be an intentional step to live more fully into God's dream for us as the body of Christ, the beloved community. As Bell Hooks wrote in All About Love, rarely, if ever, are any of us healed in isolation. Healing is an act of communion. And the first Wednesdays of each month throughout 2025 will invite us into healing within and through beloved community. I now invite the Reverend Brenda Smith and Deacon Tammy Devine to lead us in our time today.
So good to be with you all today. As we begin our time, we are going to focus on being light to each other. And in our time, we gather lighting the candle. And if you have one at home, I invite you to light one too. Remembering that we're called to be light in our world and for each other. So as a way of bridging all that we are surrounded with in our world, we've had violence in school shootings, political polarization, lynchings, the erasure of truth-telling of our history, genocide in Gaza, and so much more. So I invite you just to take a moment to be. I invite you to breathe into those places that are holding on to pain, achiness, tension. Over the next period of time, we're going to be sharing with you reading some quotes. And it is our hope that you allow these to just settle into your very being, to allow them to enter deep within. So we gain clarity of why it is so important for us to be light to each other, Christ's light. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "All people are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly."
A reading from Audre Lorde. I want to write down everything I know about being afraid, but I'd probably never have enough time to write anything else. Afraid is a country where they issue us passports at birth and hope we never seek citizenship in any other country. The face of afraid keeps changing constantly, and I can count on that change. I need to travel light and fast, and there's a lot of baggage I'm going to have to leave behind me. Jettison cargo. What does the face of afraid look like for you today?
We shared as we were preparing that if you feel like what you want to share feels too unsafe, that Jason is happy to cut out whatever it is that you have to share. So, or we can stop the recording so that you can actually share from your heart that which you are facing as far as fear. Fear, yeah. Eugenia, can you tell us more what specifically?
Fear to speak out.
Mm-hmm.
Fear to stand up. Fear of retribution. Afraid that history will repeat itself.
Thank you.
I'm afraid that so many people's lives are so much unsure right now than they have maybe ever been. Um, their sense of safety, their sense of belonging, their sense of value, their sense of identity, um, being assaulted from every possible direction, um, being told that they don't matter, being told that they're wrong, um, being told that their reality is not truth. Um, and I have so much privilege and am sheltered from so many of those fears, but I love so many people who aren't sheltered from them. And so their pain becomes my pain too. And their fear certainly becomes my fear.
When I read this, I thought of it literally, and I thought of the face of a woman of color walking down the street, and all of a sudden, a unmarked car pulls up, and people with masks on grab her and pull her into the car. And I just thought, that's the face of terror, and how can that be the reality in our country?
Yeah. Thank you. I think today I'm troubled a lot by the lies and the challenging ways in which we're trying to decipher what's truth and what's not truth. And I mean, AI is creating actresses, and is what's true about that and what's not true about that. I mean, that's just a silly thing, but where does that take us down the road as the evolution of all that? While there are definitely advantages, but there's also great dangers in that process. So when I think about truth and the ways in which we are trying to erase our history of being a country that has been about genocide from the very beginning, and which continued through the slavery era, and which continues today now. And I just feel like I also have this shame that I carry with this being the country I'm from, that I thought at one point in my life was a good country. And I struggle sometimes today to feel that I might, even as a person of privilege, have fear because our country is turning into a place of such violence.
Tammy, I appreciate what you said about shame. Probably 20 years ago, I was at a church where there was an intern actually from Germany. And we talked a lot. And I said, no, she said, all the Americans waved their flag. And I said, well, don't they do that in Germany? And her response was interesting. She says, no, we don't, because we are shameful for what we did.
Mm.
We're not proud of it. That was true introspection by a country.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm very afraid at how much hatred is being normalized, um, how much lying is being normalized. Um, it's interesting when you travel to another country, like I've been able to do, going to Japan over these last few years and experiencing a different country, you certainly learn to come back and see your own country differently. And then having Grace come here to this country with some of her misconceptions about the greatness of America and having to face the reality of driving along and pulling up to a stoplight and there being a person at the stoplight walking up to cars and asking for help and holding up a cardboard sign. And she said, "What is that?" And I said, "Well, we have people in our country who are unhoused." And she just kind of looked at me like, "How is that even a thing? How is that even possible?" Um, because homelessness is not an issue in Japan. When I was over there, we were at a downtown public park. Probably 11 o'clock at night was filled with people, including children. And I just remember at one point walking around and thinking, there's not a single person here who owns a gun, and I don't have to worry about getting shot. I mean, just those moments of revelation when you step outside of your own culture or country. And certainly right now, it's starting to feel like I feel like I'm a foreigner in my own country sometimes. Um, and then for Grace to come here and have those perspectives, and we turn on the news and she sees shooting after shooting after shooting on the news, and she's just like, just dumbfounded. And I'm like, yeah, it's just becoming the norm. It's just becoming an everyday thing. We're becoming desensitized to it. The lies are getting bolder and more outrageous. The attacks are going from being microaggressions to being huge aggressions, um, and literal aggressions and assaults. Um, and I agree with you, Tammy. I also carry that sense of shame and embarrassment of being an American in a country that does not um, feel right to me right now. Um, and I guess I have a lot of hope in the human spirit, and I've learned to see things in a new way by seeing uh, the people in Japan and go, huh, it is possible to have a society where there is not homelessness. It is possible to have a society where there is no private gun ownership and everybody is still safe and nobody has to feel unsafe. And the lies that we've been told and really forced to absorb that tell us, no, you're not safe, you're not safe, you're not safe, but we have a solution here. Do this, try this, vote for this, and we get fed a solution to fear that the fear itself created in the first place.
Thank you.
For me, the face of fear is, I think I've shared this before. I have a great nephew and three great nieces, ranging in age from 6 to 14, and I'm afraid of what the future will hold for them as they grow up. I have opportunities that I don't think they'll have. And I also see the face of fear of not only what's happening here, but how our lack of giving resources to like children in Africa and families in Gaza, and how what those children will grow up.
Hmm.
Many of them are dying, but those who grow up, what will their lives be like? And I think especially of those children, the Haitian children that were in Ohio, and how people were saying they were eating dogs and cats. How do those children get past that in their lives? That hatred that was shown to them. It's astounding to me that our country would treat people like that.
For me, it's the people being so overwhelmed that we become numb. And then the AI and the algorithm is extremely scary the more I learn about it.
Thank you for inviting this sharing, Tammy. I'm thinking of the Afghan refugees that the people in my community helped resettle between July of 2021 and January or February of 2022. And now their temporary protection status has been revoked by the current administration. And these people trusted the United States and protected United States military people during that war. And they literally escaped for their lives. And now they're living in this possibility that at any moment someone could swoop in, put them on a plane, and send them back. And the minute their feet touch Afghan soil, they'll be executed. Whatever you all are hearing about the Taliban has changed and things are more steady there, that is an outright lie. These individuals are under true threat, and I just feel so helpless. They trusted us. I just don't have words.
And yet we're reminded of the words from Martin Luther King Jr. All people are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly.
But even the truth of that statement is now under attack. I mean, the statement is true, but the lie that is being told is we're not mutually dependent. We're individually sufficient. There's limited resources. It's up to each person to get whatever they can, however they can. And we have no responsibility or obligation to worry about anybody else. And it's a level of selfishness and greed that I just never thought that I would experience in my lifetime. And yeah, I mean, it's absolutely contrary to the gospel. And yet that truth is under assault.
Another quotation from Audre Lorde. Survival isn't some theory operating in a vacuum. It's a matter of my everyday living and making decisions. How do I hold faith with sun in a sunless place? It is so hard not to counter this despair with a refusal to see. But I have to stay open and filtering no matter what's coming at me, because that arms me in a particularly Black woman's way.
All people are caught in the inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly.
I think it's hard to come from a basis of faith and Christianity when that's no longer the foundation of so many people.
And yet, I would say that that's part of why we need each other, to support each other, to reinforce each other as we struggle in this time. And that's part of what Beloved Community longs to do, is to be there, to be that safe place for us to come as we are with what we're feeling and what we're navigating, and to be support for each other as we go through those challenging times, but we do it together. And that's what our faith, I think, calls us to, and that's That's as difficult as it is, that's what it means to be a Christ follower.
Is that a perfect lead in to the song we had?
Yep. I don't know if it was perfect or not, but that's the lead in.
Would you harbor me?
Ah, this is good.
Would I harbor you? Would you harbor me? Would I harbor you? Would you harbor a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, a heretic, convict, or spy? Would you harbor a runaway woman or child, a poet, a prophet, a king? Would you harbor an exile or a refugee, a person living with AIDS? Would you harbor a Tubman, a Garrett, a Truth, a fugitive or a slave? Would you harbor a Haitian, Korean, or Czech, a lesbian or a gay? Would you harbor a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, a heretic, convict, or spy? Would you harbor a runaway woman or child, a poet, a prophet, a king? Would you harbor an exile or a refugee, a person living with AIDS? Would you harbor a Tubman, a Garrett, a Truth, a fugitive or a slave? Would you harbor a Haitian, Korean, or Czech, a lesbian or a gay? Would you harbor me? Would I harbor you? Would you harbor me? Would I
Where does our power lie, and how do we school ourselves to use it in the service of what we believe?
So, as we've been reflecting and soaking in these words, what feels real to you today?
For me, I can feel the heaviness of our hearts as we are doing this.
And yet I feel like I'm supported by a group of people who are gathered to be support to each other as well.
Mhm.
So I feel like that there's a community that I'm surrounded with that might feel heavy, but we're feeling it together.
Yes.
I'm not remembering the exact words, but that last quote, Audre Lorde quote, made me think of Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote. Darkness cannot overcome darkness, only light can do that. And hatred cannot overcome hatred, only love can do that. And I think that is the power that we have, God's love.
Right. Thank you.
And when you were ready to cue up the song and it was just a dark screen, and given our topic today, I thought about Elie Wiesel in his book Night, writing about the Holocaust, and an experience that that he had, and what a powerful writing that is. Um, and I remember reading that book and having a hard time imagining how anything like that could be possible. Like, how could humanity do that to other people? Like, how could people do that to other people? Um, and it's and yet there is, I think a lot of people would say we're living in dark times. There certainly feels like that darkness, and I think about people like Elie Wiesel who witnessed to the power of enduring courage to make it through the darkness, and so many examples of people who faced darkness with courage. And so I look to people like that for those messages of hope, like you've been putting quotes from different people today, because that's what gets us through the darkness, is knowing that the darkness, no matter how dark it gets, is only temporary. Ultimately, in God's time, it's only temporary.
I think, Andrew, I really appreciate you sharing that. And this reminds me of a conversation that I had. I was at a funeral the last 2 days, and the extended family, of course, engaged in a lot of conversation about other family members, previous deaths. And an interesting topic started to surface from all of that. People started to give account for how others showed up for them, even in the hardest times. And what was very tearful and very difficult, especially remembering those, what we would call out of order deaths, tragedies, loved ones taken way earlier than their time. It was heartening for me to hear these people give testimony to how unexpected resources showed up, especially in those first moments where the news was new and the shock was great. And I think that that's true for us in this time. Unfortunately, none of this is new. We've been living this now for some time, this new reality. And I'm wondering for myself, how does the paradigm change if I remember to look for the resources that God has sent? And when am I that resource, right? To your question,
Mhm.
when am I that point of privilege and power that can come into the space and do something?
Look for the helpers.
When the world feels unsafe, how do we create safety in ourselves and in community?
For some reason, and I'm not sure if this applies, but what came to mind when you asked that question, Brenda, was thinking back to how the Moravian text got started in sharing God's word in a country in which there wasn't a freedom to share the word, but someone would send a message for the daily text. So each family member was praying the same scripture and prayer together as community. So for some reason that came to mind as you talked about um, creating safety in community, and what a balm that must have felt to recognize that they weren't alone, that there were others that were praying those same prayers.
At our current, at my current congregation, we've looked at this um, in practical terms, and every single Sunday, as we're pulling up wherever in the parking lot, there's one gentleman that always greets. I mean, he goes through the parking lot and he's racing back and forth to make sure everyone receives a handshake and a welcome before each of the two services, whether they're strangers or known members. Um, it does a number of things safety wise as well as welcoming wise.
And that sounds like it's responding in love versus fear.
I think we need to speak out for others. If we are in a meeting or somewhere and someone says something that's racist or homophobic or misogynistic, we need to call that we need to call out that behavior. Not in meanness, but in love. That this is not acceptable.
That means we have to be vulnerable and humble in doing that.
Mm-hmm. And brave, because you never know how people will react.
I think for me, creating safety is making sure that no one walks alone. And if we could all do that and look out for each other, um, then nobody would walk alone. And I think right now that's the most important thing, is to just make sure people feel connected and know that they matter and that they belong. and they're not alone.
Thank you. Yeah, indeed, this is the vision of the ELC coaching ministry, and that is indeed what Beloved Community intends to do. Yeah.
Ready for something a little different?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on the edge of my chair.
You know me.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine to show my love. Let it, oh, everywhere I go, Lord, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, everywhere I go, Lord, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, Lord, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it go.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Ooh, this little light of mine, I've got to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, shine, shine. Let it shine. Only let it shine. You know, everywhere I go, I've got to let it shine, 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 shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere that I go, I say, I got to let it shine. Let it shine, 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 shine. All around me, I'm gonna let it shine. All around me, I've got to let it shine, shine, shine. All around me, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, 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 shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Thank you, Jason. And thank you, each of you, for being here with us today.
And thanks to Tammy and Brenda for leading us and for all the planning, and Candy, who's not here with us today, who also contributes. And again, to each of you for being here. And so we look forward to being together next week as we study the next chapter in Custer Died for Your Sins. We are on chapter 10. How is that possible? Yeah, okay. And then next month the last one? Or do we go all the way through December for that one?
Yeah, there's 11 chapters, and I think we were going to do like a wrap up and talk about maybe what's next.
Excellent. Okay. All right, friends, as you leave this space, please know that you are seen, you are valued, and you indeed are loved, and you are the light of Jesus in the world. Thank you.
And so are you guys.
Thank you, Sylvia. Yep.
Okay, everybody.
Bye, Andrew. God bless you.